From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Good afternoon and welcome to Ask the Attorney. I'm Amy Rao Mohan, an attorney and host here at News Channel 5 Plus, and it's a real pleasure to do this show where we have the opportunity to ask attorneys any question that you want, any type of legal question, from a civil to criminal question. We've got all of those covered, and Kevin Kennedy is here today.
Thank you, Amy. Nice to be with you as always.
As always.
It's a pleasure.
Kevin Kennedy, you're from the Kennedy Law Firm in Clarksville.
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about what you do and how long you've been practicing.
Well, basically, I've been a lawyer now for 31 years, and we do everything. We have a large group of lawyers and a big support staff, so they handle everything from civil, from divorce to car wrecks, to wills, to bankruptcy. So it's a full-service law firm, and then, you know, over the years, what you've learned is you're going to have to deal with a little bit of law in a whole bunch of different areas.
Right, and we want you to call that number at the bottom of your screen there, 737 plus 737 7587, and Kevin can answer all of your questions. So please keep those calls coming in, and we'll get to those calls. And Kevin, before this, you know, we've been talking about, you hear a lot about in the news car wrecks all the time.
Yes.
And people always wonder, what should I do if I'm in a car wreck?
It's a big question. A lot of times people say, well, do I really need a lawyer? Because, you know, and lawyers have car wrecks. So, and we've said, you and I, over the years that we've been doing this show, that if you got in a jam, would you hire a lawyer? And your response has always been,
of course.
Of course. My response has always been, of course. Well, you know, you've got 31 years.
Someone to advocate for you.
You need someone to advocate. You need someone to bounce ideas off of. And the system works best when you have that. So a lot of people say, well, you know, I don't know that this is worth a lawyer's time. If you're involved in a car wreck, what the first thing I want you to do is try to, the insurance companies teach you, don't admit that it's your fault. Sometimes they won't cover your policy because you've made statements against your own interests. So that's a little clause. So you've got to be thinking about protecting yourself and teaching each other. Knowledge is power. If you had a car wreck, you should get out, get your composure. You should photograph. You should think through what you're going to say. When the police come up, you know, you never know what they're going to really want to question you about. So you just use the best judgment that you can. Immediately, if you even think that you're hurt, call an ambulance. Just go. That's why you have insurance, and you have most people have medical pay under their car insurance policy. It's another good thing to tell everyone. You should check your policy. Do I have a minimum limits in my car insurance? If I do, you should raise it up. And then who's covered? Is Amy covered? A good understanding keeps down a misunderstanding.
It's amazing how many contracts we sign throughout our lives and never read the
well,
fine
we all
print.
assume. We say, well, you've got insurance. Okay, well, there's so many exclusions, and you know, I see lots and lots of policies. They'll send you something. This is an amended declaration because of terrorism or whatever. We're not going to cover this. Earthquake, we're not going to cover this. But in the car wrecks, it's one of my sons, who's now a doctor. I said, what'd you learn from Daddy? He used to work at the law firm in the summer as an intern. He said, always have...
I learned to go to med school.
I know. He did. He said, always have insurance, but don't rely on it. So what he was really meaning, that was Daddy preaching and teaching to him to protect yourself, son. Now, we're going to have the coverage, but don't always rely and just say, okay, I don't have to worry about anything. My insurance is going to pay that. So I want to tell everybody, get your medical attention. If they want to refer you, and I have a lot of conversations. You know, there's chiropractors. We get excellent chiropractor care. I like them. Orthopedic surgeons, one deals with soft tissue, one deals with bones. There's another neurologist. And in any of these accidents, you could have a multitude of injuries, and you want to be compensated for all of those. So you need to tell it to your doctor, and then whatever they tell you. If they say you need to come back again, sometimes we say, I'm too busy. I don't want to come back. Well, then I want my claim to be maxed. Well, you have to pursue it. and you have to do what the doctor says, or he'll say, look, you went outside the treatment recommendations.
Well, as you can see, Kevin obviously has a wealth of information, so please call that number at the bottom of your screen, 737 plus 737 7587. We'll start taking some calls here.
Okay.
Look, the phone lines are already
Light
lit
them
up.
up and let's go.
All right, we've got Tracy here. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, how are you all?
Good. How are
Great,
you?
Tracy.
Great. Well, it sounds like you're having a medical malpractice night, but I don't. My question has to do with breaking a contract due to signing it under duress.
Okay.
And we're taking all kinds of questions
Any
today.
kind of question you got, we'll hit it and go. Yeah.
And
Now,
so what happened was, I signed this contract with this attorney, after finding out some information, and I sort of did it in a panic. And afterwards, I realized that maybe that wasn't the right thing. Can I break that contract since it was under duress?
okay, first off, usually a contract means there's got to be a meeting of the minds. Okay, if Amy and I went into a contract and if we met in our minds, and then most contracts are evidenced by writing. The statute of frauds in Tennessee requires that there be a writing if it's over $500 or if it's over a year. So now if the lawyer said, this is what I'm going to do, and he signed and you signed, you have a contract. Can you break contracts? You've already suggested one, duress, misrepresentation. There's a host of things, and then there's a host of exceptions to the exceptions. So you probably just need to talk to a lawyer and explain what the circumstances were. And, if you didn't sign a legal binding contract and he says, well, hey, it's for X amount of dollars, you probably got a way to get away from that because statute of frauds. We don't know the length of when you've done this contract. If it went further, you could say, hey, statute of limitations run, that contract means nothing. Or you come back and say, wait a minute, I was only 17. I can't even contract. I'm a minor. That's a voidable contract in the state. So there's a host of rules, and no one can really say that until they heard all the facts.
Know all the facts and circumstances.
That's why you need an advocate.
Yeah, and Kevin's information will be on your screen at the end of the show, so be sure to wait for that.
Never say never. All these guys, I had a lawyer one time, and we were in a prenuptial. And we were getting ready to go. And I said, well, just help this lady, cut us a little deal, and we'll get this over with. And the lawyer stood and he said, listen, I wrote this prenuptial. It cannot be broken. I will not give her a dime. And then within an hour, the judge had broke what he had said. And I said, wow, here we go. So never say never.
All right. We've got Sherman here with the question. Hi, Sherman.
Yes, I have a question for you. A friend of mine had old MasterCard and a collection lawyer sued him. They took his whole checking account, which included a Social Security check. What can you do if your Social Security check is taken up? Isn't that against federal law? And if you know you're going to be sued, how can you protect that Social Security check?
Okay.
That's a good question.
First off, they can't take that check unless they've gotten a judgment. So if someone serves papers on you, and we have collection agencies threaten all the time. If you don't pay us $6,000, we're going to take your home, we're going to do well, that's a lot of threats, and that's violation of the Fair Debt Collection Act. But, people use all kinds of techniques to get people to pay. So first, they've got to carry to court, and they've got to get a judgment. Once that judgment's in place, they have a right to execute on your bank accounts. You're right, they should not be able to take your Social Security. And so again, if you know that Social Security is in there, you ought to take your money out of that account, where even if they ran an execution, the money wouldn't be there. So, you've got to constantly be proactive. I tell everyone to be creative and be proactive. And if you don't, those creditors will be out there. They'll get your money. And then, of course, you're going back saying, that's my Social Security. You can't do this. Well, you're in a fight.
All right. We've got Roseanne who's been waiting patiently. Hi, Roseanne.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. How can we help you today?
My husband passed away last month. He had several credit cards that I knew he had, but I didn't know he had charged a great deal on them.
am I liable for his unpaid credit card bills?
Okay. As a general rule, I say no. Now, if you were on that credit card, if you used that credit card, you could have ratified the use of that credit card and they would use that against you. But as a general rule, you wouldn't have to pay that debt. You could send a copy of the death certificate and the matter's closed. Now again, if they ask you and say, would you pay that, you could enter into a new contract saying, yes, I will pay that, but that's a voluntary, you didn't have to do that.
All right. Well, we've got plenty more questions to get to, and we'll get to all of those questions with Kevin Kennedy from the Kennedy Law Firm in Clarksville. So keep calling that number, 737+, 737-7587, and we'll be back with Kevin right after this.